So first of all, I am here today because of a journey. It's just not my journey. A friend of mine had a vision of a place we call the Armada, which is here in Miami, and he was scheduled to speak in this slot, and he couldn't make it, and the universe had him call me to take this spot. So,
and we're glad you're here.
Thank you. I've had about a minute of preparation, so. And I've been watching speakers for the last couple of days, and I realized that in fact I am very, very different from almost all of them because I'm not a doctor and I basically have no expertise in psychedelics. So what I am is someone who has had a very long, pretty interesting journey, I think, through running, through adventure, through some other modalities that have brought me to this place where not only do I love this kind of a conference and the people associated with it, but I'm also I'm able to feel like I'm a part of it instead of apart from it. So I'm just going to tell a couple of stories, and then I'm going to tell you where psychedelics have come into my life to help make a change. So my first son was born when I was 29 years old, and this is the simplest way for me to start. And he didn't know it, but he was basically going to be my savior. Like he was going to change everything for me, because for the previous 12 years to that date, I had been an addict, addicted to anything I could get my hands on. I'd gone to rehab, I'd gone to church, I'd gone to see a shaman, I'd gone to see a witch doctor. I literally had tried everything outside of me to try to get me to stop these crazy behaviors of mine, and nothing had actually worked for me. And his birth, I thought, was going to finally be the thing that would change that, because I remember holding this tiny little baby and thinking, you know, surely a decent dad, a decent human being could stay sober for his son. And for a couple of months, that actually worked. You know, I felt strong. I felt like this is it. I'm going to change my life. And for no reason at all, I ended up in the worst neighborhood in town, where I spent 6 days smoking crack and drinking and doing the deal and just destroying everything that I had built for the last couple of months. And that 6-day binge ended with me handcuffed on the ground. The police are searching my car. There's 3 bullet holes in my car. I would love to tell you that this is the only time this kind of thing had ever happened to me, but that's not true. And like I'm watching this scene like an out-of-body experience, and the cop is like, he's throwing out bottles and cans and digging through my car, and he reaches under the driver's seat and he pulls out this little glass pipe and this crack pipe, and he looks at me in that sort of condemning way, and like any remotely sane person in that moment would have been thinking, like, this is bad. Like, this is really going to be bad. I'm in some serious trouble. All I could think in that moment was, so that's where that was. It was like, I spent like 2 days looking for that crack pipe, and apparently I tucked it under my seat. I'm like, maybe that's where the cop keeps his crack pipe. I don't know. So I realized in that moment one very important thing. Nobody was coming to save me. Like, my infant son couldn't save me, my boss couldn't save me, my wife couldn't save me. Like, that wasn't going to happen. A lot of people would be on my team to help me get better if I made the decision to save myself. And that's what I did. And I went to an AA meeting that night. I'd been to a lot of AA meetings in the past, but I had gone to AA meetings primarily because I wanted to figure out how to like control my drinking, because drinking was really screwing up my drug use. And I got a lot of jokes. So for the first time, I went in there with an open heart, and I wanted to hear what was being said. And I heard it, and I went to I got up and went for a run the next morning, and I had been a runner previously, and I committed to do those things every day until I got better. And that ended up taking me 3 years. So for 3 years, I ran every single day, and I went to an AA meeting every single day. And I ran something like 35 marathons in those 3 years, because clearly I had that whole addiction thing under control, right? So, but I learned that I loved the power of voluntary suffering. is really what it boiled down to. I loved putting myself in a vulnerable, difficult position because I knew if I could get through that moment in a race where I didn't want to keep going, where I couldn't possibly keep going, if I could find a way to get through that moment, I could translate that to my marriage, to my business, to my relationship with my kids. Like, I could take that and learn how to be a better, stronger person all the way around. So this sort of new addiction, if you will, to running, which, by the way, I did have people criticize me. They're like, oh, it seems like you just switched addictions. And, you know, I didn't agree. And I said to one guy, I remember this very distinctly, I'm like, look, dude, I haven't sold my car to enter a marathon yet. You know, but I damn sure did that to buy Coke. So let's have a little perspective here. So I started doing races all around the world. I ran across the Gobi Desert in China, because who doesn't? I ran across Death Valley a number of times in a race called Badwater. I ran across the jungles of Vietnam and Borneo and Fiji, and I worked my way into being one of the world's top ultra-endurance runners for a lot of years. I also became the senior television producer for a TV show called Extreme Makeover Home Edition, so I started to work on the pilot on that show, and like, it's a very unlikely path for someone who had screwed up so many years. But these two worlds really fit together well for me. And I loved the act of doing kind things for people that deserved it on this show. And I loved cultural exploration. I don't even like to run that much, quite frankly, which is kind of funny. But I love what running does for me, the vehicle it provides. So a couple of years later, I ended up in the middle of the Amazon jungle. That's not the Amazon. And a friend, a guy that I knew vaguely, said, you know, have you ever thought about running across the Sahara Desert? And I basically said, no, that's a stupid idea. Why would anyone do that? You have to be an idiot. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. I got back home, I started to research the Sahara and found out that, in fact, no one had ever run across the Sahara Desert. So go figure, turns out for good reason. And I started to just tell people that I was going to be the first person to run across the Sahara with absolutely no basis or foundation for saying that. I had done a fair amount of crazy things at that point, but like, this isn't the Appalachian Trail. Like, you can't go to Barnes & Noble and buy a book on how to do this. But I took possession of this idea, and I really look at it like I allowed other people to take full possession of the impossibility of it. And each time someone told me I couldn't do it, I dug in just a little bit deeper. And I told the story often enough that I got an introduction, because I was working on this TV show, to a very famous director named James Mall. James had won the Academy Award for Best Documentary a couple of years earlier. And I went in and pitched him on this idea. The worst pitch in history. I showed up like 20 minutes late for a 30-minute meeting, and like, it was just awful, but it was filled with passion. And at the end of it, he stood up and stuck out his hand and said he wanted to do this with me. And I think it goes to show, you know, heart and passion overcome preparation even, you know, quite often. Hopefully that's what's going to happen here on stage. So anyway, he calls me a week later and he's like, hey, you know, we're going to do this project together, but we need a production company. I just hung up with Matt Damon, and Matt would like to be the executive producer of this project, and he wants to narrate the film. Would that be okay with you? And I took a beat, and I'm very deadpan in my humor, and I basically said, look, I was really hoping for somebody better, but if Matt Damon wants to do this, then welcome aboard, Matt. So a few weeks later, Hans Zimmer signed on. So, like, we've got 3 Academy Award winners, to be clear. We got 3 Academy Award winners attached to a project about me running across deep sand. Like, super exciting stuff. And a year and a half later, this bottom right-hand picture is me with my team. So there's going to be 2 other runners. We're all running the whole way together. And everybody's very excited. We're on the coast of Senegal in West Africa in that photo, and we're starting the next day. And all I can think in that moment is, I have suckered all of these people here to the Sahara Desert, and we are all gonna die. Like, there is no way that, like, this isn't possible. But everyone believed we could do it because I told them we could do it. You know, I mean, that is what it's about. Like, I didn't know what I was doing at all, but, you know, I knew that if we had the right attitude and we could stay together as a team, that it would really work out. So a week into this thing, and you can see us trudging through here, it's 140-degree ground temperatures every single day. It's support vehicles are blowing up, support people are quitting. It's like this really terrible situation where everything that could possibly go wrong was happening at the exact same time. And that's what you don't count on quite often. Building a business plan, going on an adventure, you come up with this list of things that can happen, but you don't count on them all happening at once. So everything was falling apart. I recognized on day 7 that I was so attached to the outcome, and this is probably the most important thing I could say, at least today. Outcomes are dangerous because if you get attached to outcomes, as I felt huge pressure. Millions of dollars are invested, lots of people are watching, like we're doing this thing, and I felt the pressure of getting to the other side of the Sahara Desert, which, by the way, was still 5,000 miles away. And that focus on the outcome stopped me from being present in what I was actually doing in that moment. And just like in the basic tenets of addiction recovery, the one day at a time mantra, I knew that if I didn't start focusing on what was right in front of me, I was not gonna make it. So on day 8, I woke up in the morning and all I thought about was running a marathon before lunch. Had lunch, took a little break, and all I thought about after that was running a second marathon in the afternoon. And then I took this little thin foam mat that I had and I put it on the ground and I stared up at a billion stars because there wasn't an electric light within 500 miles of where I was, and I gave thanks. I just gave thanks for the opportunity to be out there alive and suffering. Like, that's what I was grateful for, is just the chance to actually be feeling this pain compared to the pain of addiction from decades earlier. And slowly but surely, we started to make our way across the desert. And it was pretty spectacular. I'm just going to show you a really short video clip so you can see what this looks like. You can do this. You don't want to quit. 2008. It's okay.
We saw a young boy, 7 or 8 years old, in the desert alone, fending for himself while his dad was a 2 days walk away to get water. That's the water situation. I mean, it's so much bigger an issue than I would have ever thought.
Narrated by executive producer Matt Damon and directed by James Mall, a personal and compelling journey into the world's most mysterious wilderness.
The purpose of the 3 of us coming here was to learn more about each other, to learn about the people of the Sahara, and to do something that hasn't been done before.
They all 3 agreed that if one runner went down, they would be out of the expedition.
I thought your commitment was different than that.
When is the end?
The end is when we get to Cairo.
When Africa is one, and we sing this song, show me the way home. Oh, I, show me the way home. It don't hurt no more.
It will be a life-changing experience, and not just for the 3 runners, for everybody who's along on this journey. You can still get that on iTunes, by the way, for like $2. So running the Sahara, so I get no commission. But thank you. So by the time this was over, I basically ran nearly 5,000 miles, 2 marathons a day, every day for 111 consecutive days without taking a day off. Who knew Africa was that big? You know, it's like, I should have done a better job of, yeah, only 2 showers, so be glad you weren't there. Smelled like a wet cheeseburger most of the time. So, but it was a life-changing experience for me in so many ways. You know, I got the chance to be singularly focused on one thing day after day. And the lesson was the only miles that I could focus on were the ones right in front of me. And I think it's a pretty good metaphor for what we all do, if you're like me, is, you know, it's difficult to stay focused on those miles that are directly right in front of you because they're the only ones that you can actually control. So this little expedition put me on the map. I would say the lasting legacy, I'm going to skip this video. The lasting legacy of this was actually that Matt Damon and I created something called H2O Africa. I raised about $6 million during the run and briefly afterwards. Today, H2O Africa is known as water.org, and it is the world's largest clean water nonprofit. Thank you. So, and I'm not a philanthropist. I joked I don't have enough money to be a philanthropist, but the point is, if you have passion for an idea and you build something and allow other people to come to it, that's how you build something. If you're always verbalizing the point or the idea or trying to sell other people on things, people get turned off by that, and they can make their own decisions. But if you build something that is worthy of their support, they will come to it on their own. I mean, we've raised about $1.4 billion at this point and deployed more than $4 billion. And it came all just from an idea. I just wanted to see if I could run across the Sahara. There wasn't anything else to it. Like, that was it. And it was my journey, pun intended, of exploration to figure out what made me tick. Running, and I admit, I've run over 150,000 miles. That's pretty addictive. I've run across about 50 countries. But I mean it when I say it's not the running that I like. It allows me to dig into those parts of me that I can't reach through therapy, through AA, through other mechanisms, until a couple of years ago. And this is the first time I'm actually saying this out loud on a stage. I had an opportunity to have an experience, to have a journey in a very, very safe place with one of the world's top facilitators. And it happened almost spur of the moment. I called my sponsor. And I'm not kidding. Me 5 years ago, definitely 10 years ago, I would have said, psychedelics are for people who are not willing to work hard enough in therapy to get where they need to go, because I didn't know what the hell I was talking about. And that was just that fear for me, that fear that there was like some shortcut out there that I wasn't privy to. And I now understand, of course, that this is not a shortcut. Anybody who chooses to go down this path with psychedelic therapies, it's not a shortcut. It's just another door into the truth. And so for me, that one experience really changed things for me. It changed my life. I grew up in AA with the pathology of disease. I was told that I had a disease, and that actually made me feel better. You know what I mean? I actually felt better because it's not my fault. If it's a disease, it's not my fault. Like, there's nothing I can actually do about it. I can try to take steps to combat it, but the actual disease is not my fault. And in some weird way, that was comforting, but I accepted that I was a fourth generation alcoholic addict, and that this was never going to change for me. And so all I had to do was keep fighting against it and figuring, not really getting to the truth of why it might have happened to begin with. So I've since subsequently had a couple of other journeys that basically taught me that I became friends with Gabor Mate. Like, the universe put amazing people in my life, and I figured out that my trauma, from earlier in my life when I was a kid, really drove my addictions. And, it's not like today. I mean, I'm 31 years clean and sober at this point, and part of my mission, thank you. And even though I've started doing psychedelics 2 years ago, and I've had these 4 amazing experiences, that does not change anything about my sobriety. That first experience I had, I actually left that experience with a psilocybin chocolate bar. And that chocolate bar is still in my drawer at home, in my sock drawer. If that was an 8-ball of Coke, I would have done it the next day, right? I mean, there's no comparison to these things. And, and I haven't used it simply because I want, at this point, at this stage in my growth, I still want to have experiences where I'm surrounded by other people. I'm having a group session. I do lots of prep work, and I do tons of integration afterwards. And the integration is what saved my life, and it's what's helped create this new life of mine. And it's, I have some haters out there now. If you don't have some haters, though, you're really not trying hard enough. So, I mean, I do actually believe that. You're not pushing any edge anywhere if somebody's not telling you you're an asshole. So just keep that in mind. So I've got another idea, and my good friend Rebecca's sitting here in the front. She knows all about this, but I'd call it another bad idea. My wife certainly says it's a bad idea, but I have been on this there's a whole other piece of my story. I don't have time to tell it today, but as a sober person, I ended up in prison 11, 12 years ago, and it's a crazy story on the New York Times front page, and it was a financial thing, and it's on the front page of my own website, so you're welcome to look it up if you want to go there. But suffice it to say, that was also a really important experience in my life, and one that actually, while it hurt me in many ways, and it hurt my ego, what it taught me is, today even, is to own my narrative. No one else can. It's why, while I'm not going to tell you the story, I wanted to say those words out loud to you and own it and be vulnerable and trust you. If you want to go look at it, that's fine. But I don't want you to like Google me later and say, hey, he didn't tell me that part. Because it doesn't matter. My narrative is mine, and my son, who's actually, I think he's quite brilliant in his mid-20s, he's like, we were having this conversation a couple of years ago, and he basically said, nobody's thinking about you anyway, Dad. Like, no, we think people are thinking about us. Like, somehow we believe that other people are actually focused on us. They're not. Nobody is. We're all focused 99% of the time on ourselves. Even if we're in a business where we're working with and helping other people, doesn't make us bad. It's actually the right thing to do. If we're not doing, the things that are going to help us grow and change, then we can't possibly be of service to other people. So I want to show you a little bit about this next idea of mine. I'm going to skip some of these. So this actually happened. Oh, wait, hold on, backwards. This actually happened while I was in prison. I'm going to let that sit right there. But I had this idea of this never-ending journey that we're all on, of low places and high points. And like, it just goes, it cycles through, and it's a roller coaster. And I wanted to put a literal spin on that idea. I'm going to see if I can I go back? Oh, there we go. So what I'm going to do, and this is January of 2025, this is fully funded and going to happen. I'm going to start at the Dead Sea. I was planning to start in Israel. We're going to have to see what happens with that. But either way, the Dead Seas, Jordan and Israel are right there. And I'm going to kayak across the Dead Sea. Not that hard. It's about 10 miles. But I'm going to do a free dive in the middle of the Dead Sea to the lowest place that I can reach. Hopefully 100 feet or more. I've never free dived before in my life, so I probably should learn how to do that. I don't believe in over-preparation. It just screws everything up a lot of times. It teaches you can't do things. So hopefully I come back up. Otherwise, it's the world's shortest expedition, like 3 hours long. And I will continue to run all the way across the Arabian Desert. It's about 2,000 miles across Saudi Arabia and Oman. At the tip of Oman down here, I'm going to get into a boat that I will row a little over 1,000 miles across the Indian Ocean. And when I get to just north of Mumbai, I'm going to mountain bike to western Nepal. Along the way, I have a beautiful get-together with the Dalai Lama in India. And I'm going to get to the Everest base camp. And from there, it's only like, 2 or 3 miles. This happens to be straight up. So this will be a lowest place on the planet to the highest point on the planet, human-powered expedition. And here's a little bit of what that looks like, if I can still go back to it. I may have screwed up my... Can you cue that video back there? Oh, thank you. Throw roses into the abyss and say, "Here is my thanks to the monster who didn't succeed in swallowing me alive." I've always done things the hard way. The easy way just isn't interesting to me. I was an addict. I spent 18 months in federal prison, divorced, remarried, fallen in love, raised a family, cheated death. But I've never done anything like this before. People ask me, why are you doing this? I ache for this. Sign-ups will be in the back. If you guys want to sign up for which part you want to do with me. So, thank you. So, yeah, just to finish up real quick, thank you. You know, it won't surprise anybody that I believe first and foremost in the power of physical movement. You know, I think that breath work, you know, added a whole new dimension to my life a couple of years ago during COVID. Obviously, my psychedelic journeys have been very, you know, they've changed my life. They changed my life, and they will continue to change my life every day. And I plan to be very mindful about those, and I want to continue to be a voice, especially in the world of addiction. I'm partners with Deepak Chopra in a business around addiction. You know, I've got some cool opportunities to be a voice out there. So if you see my voice or hear it out there, and people are picking on me, please support me. So thank you guys so much.